Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode number 60. We've got Charles Staley on here today. Charles is going to tell us a little bit about his lifting, his crazy deadlift and chin-ups at 58 years of age, and why it's really important for people to build strength and muscle into their 50s and beyond, how he actually got into the best shape of his life at 50 onward. We have a little bit of a diatribe on gym etiquette. Charles and I are both a little passionate about that one. There's a great discussion about why 8 to 12 reps is still a sweet spot for building muscle mass, despite being able to really effectively build muscle mass at any rep range. And a better discussion on the value of the tried and true basics and exercise selection for building muscle mass. Thanks. I hope you enjoy it.
Shut up and sit down.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode number 60. We've got Charles Staley on here today. Charles is going to tell us a little bit about his lifting, his crazy deadlift and chin-ups at 58 years of age, and why it's really important for people to build strength and muscle into their 50s and beyond, how he actually got into the best shape of his life at 50 onward. We have a little bit of a diatribe on gym etiquette. Charles and I are both a little passionate about that one. There's a great discussion about why 8 to 12 reps is still a sweet spot for building muscle mass, despite being able to really effectively build muscle mass at any rep range. And a better discussion on the value of the tried and true basics and exercise selection for building muscle mass. Thanks. I hope you enjoy it. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. Today we've got Charles Staley on here, and he may be the most experienced guest we've ever featured on the podcast. Charles has worked with clients for decades, getting people stronger and healthier. He's written over 1,000 articles about various different things in fitness, and he's long contributed to the expansion of training knowledge in our industry. So welcome, Charles.
Hey, thanks so much.
And would you tell us a little bit about your background working in the industry?
Yeah, I've told this story before at some point, so hopefully it's not redundant for people. But in 1991, I was the weight room manager at the Dutchess County YMCA in Poughkeepsie, New York, and this was like when Nautilus was like the big thing, and so that was a big part of this. But I was actually at the New York State weightlifting championships, and Dr. Fred Hatfield was like kind of like the guest trophy presenter, for lack of a better term. And I had been reading, if you know Anthony Robbins, I had been reading one of his books. I can't remember which one it was, but there was a chapter that was titled something along the lines of how to get anything you want in life. And so you turn the page and it says ask. And then you turn to the second page and it said ask with more conviction. And then you go to the next page and it says ask somebody better. And, you know, that was just the whole theme of the chapter. And so I guess that was in my subconscious somehow. And I wish I knew what I said to Fred, but I just went up to him and just said, hey, I'm looking for an opportunity. Here's who I am. Here's what I do. He said, well, my partner and I, Dr. Sal Aria, we're setting up this thing called the International Sports Sciences Association. And my partner's real busy, could use some help. Do you want to go out there? And I'm like, sure. So, so 6 months later, I'm sitting in Santa Barbara, and from that point of view, from that position, I started meeting people like Dr. Paul Ward, Dr. Jim Wright from Weider, and then meeting all sorts of guys like Tom Platz, and obviously, Fred Hatfield was around and all that. So that got me into muscle and fitness, and just put me in an environment where I could kind of, I think, what's the word I'm looking for? Just sort of take advantage of the skills that I had. And so for anybody who enjoys my work, you should posthumously thank Dr. Fred Hatfield, because he kind of gave me my start. So that's kind of how that all happened.
Oh, wow. And then, so what is it, 91? So how many years later is that? We're at 2018. I'm terrible with this math. 25.
Yeah, I was
35.
I was 4 years old.
You were 4 years old.
Andrew was
I was 13.
You were 13. He was actually probably right in the thick of trying to learn this stuff. No?
Just starting. I think I had my first Weeder bench that my dad bought from
Yeah.
weights in the basement. Mostly bench pressing and curls and that sort of
Is
stuff.
Weeder
so.
still around? Like in
Uh,
terms of like the company? Because I had a set growing up.
It's around. It was bought out by another company, but Muscle and Fitness is still out there. And,
Yeah.
yeah.
They folded Flex magazine. That's gone, which is a shame because I didn't mind it. It was entertaining.
Yep, for sure.
I think a few of our guests had their start with Flex magazine. Was it Flex? Yeah.
I think we've had a few people who've actually written for that. Yeah. One of the really cool things about you, if anyone has been, seeing your social media, is you show off a lot of really impressive lifting, and you're 58 years old. We're talking about some pretty crazy, deadlift numbers for reps, crazy chin-ups,
thanks.
weighted chin-ups. Like, you watch this stuff, and it's really impressive. It's obviously a critical aspect of your brand and image. So let's actually take it here. Why is it important for people to build strength and muscle into their 50s and beyond?
Yeah, well, one reason that gets overlooked is it's just kind of fun.
Yeah.
But I'll come back to that maybe if you'd like. But man, I mean, I just think that's where you are going to lose ground as you get older. I mean, that's you can pretty much determine somebody's biological age by how strong they are, how much muscle they carry. I mean, your muscle mass is probably the most critical difference between you at age 58 and you at age 18, if you think about it. And so it's because those adaptations become more and more of a struggle as you get older. I think you've got to work on those things, and strength for experienced lifters is kind of a proxy for body composition. So, when you're a beginner, you can get stronger just by improving your skills. But once your skills are stabilized, your strength levels are pretty much what tell you, what's happening with your muscle mass. So if you're maintaining your strength on key exercises, then you're maintaining your muscle mass. And better yet, if you're improving your strength, you're probably increasing muscle mass. So I tend to use strength as a proxy for body composition. And especially, like, one reason I like pull-ups so much is because that kind of encourages better body composition. That the lighter and leaner you are, and especially the leaner you are, of course, the better you'll do at that lift. So especially for, like, I train a lot of older women here in Scottsdale, Arizona, and we really encourage pull-ups a lot because it sort of synchronizes with fat loss goals, I think.
I love that. I try to do a lot of pull-ups and chin-ups with virtually all of the clients I work with, and especially with women. I find women, guys love being able to do it for sure, but I think there's something incredibly empowering about getting women to do things like pull-ups, and you get them there and they light right up. They feel incredible about it, and it's something that will keep them coming back into the gym and keep pursuing their other fitness goals as well.
Yeah, super empowering. And one of my clients the other day was telling me, she goes, I'll never forget the first time I got up over that chin-up bar, and, like, the whole view was different from up there. And it was just something I'd never, as a guy, you can do pull-ups probably since you're young, so you lose touch with that kind of perspective. But I thought that was pretty funny.
It's just weird, yeah, because, like, I don't remember not being able to do one, but it was just because, like, that's what you do. Like, you just do your sit-ups, your push-ups, and your chin-ups, and I don't know, it's just... That's the activities that you just fucking do.
Well, I remember being 24 years of age when I got really, really serious about consistency within the gym and using the assisted pull-up machine to be able to do them before I could. And it didn't take too long. But yeah, I was doing assisted chin-ups and assisted dips as part of my workouts. So I do remember those days.
I remember mine was like a sleepover. It was like, when you're like a little kid, we were having like a sleepover and like, oh, can you do a chin up? And we all tested to see if we could, and some people couldn't, and I did one.
I don't even remember. I was not particularly good at them or anything else for that matter throughout, like, my 20s and stuff. So I don't know when I first got there or when I first started getting serious about it, but I think it's worthwhile. I mean, one thing that's nice about certain lifts, and you see me doing a lot of heavy deadlifts and a lot of heavy pull-ups, and one thing is that those lifts kind of say a lot about you. So if somebody calls me up and says, and, like, let's say a woman calls me up and says, hey, Charles, I want to come train with you, and here's a little bit about my background, and I can squat X amount. I don't really know what that means. I mean, to say that you can squat a certain amount of weight could mean all sorts of things. But if a woman calls me up and says, hey, I'm 44 and I can do 10 pull-ups, now I have a little bit of insight about that person, both in terms of body composition, work ethic. Now maybe she's doing bad form, whatever, but it still kind of zeroes me in a little bit in terms of what's going on, I think. So, and the same thing goes for deadlift. So I think they're just kind of key markers of your status.
Well, even if you did a shitty pull-up or chin-up, like that's still, you still gotta
it
get
still
up
gives you a
there-ish.
sense.
They're probably not like doing like an inch pull-up. Like usually they'll go like close to their chin near the bar, and that's still like a good feat regardless.
The only possible bastardization is you get someone who are just doing kipping ones.
But even then,
usually they don't misrepresent.
But even then, if they did 10 and they were like 50, you'd be like, well, they're pretty strong.
Yeah.
Like, even a kipping pull.
Yeah, I agree.
This kind of goes. I was gonna say this even goes back to what was that article? Was it last week or 2 weeks ago? The article about like things you shouldn't do over 50. You kind of basically just say fuck. All that.
Boy, that thing really spread like wildfire, and it's kind of like a clickbait thing for strength coaches, I guess, because every coach I know just went right onto that thing, and I just don't even know.
Well, that's like attacking your brand. Like basically, you should be
which
dead right now.
I'm happy to have my brand attacked. I'm happy to defend my positions, and that's the only way you get better is to have your positions critiqued and questioned, and you should be able to defend your position.
Yeah. And
you should be able to articulate the opposing position better than your opponent can. So that's like a key rule of critical thinking.
I was going to see that sounds like something from the Art of War.
Let's actually let's just answer that article, because we did allude to it in our last podcast.
Oh yeah, we didn't even
Mike
talk.
and James Hoffman, Mike Isertel, where we jumped on the fact that the industry tends to jump on these things, but at least let's actually address it, because a lot of people have been exposed to it. What are the inherent flaws with the logic of unilaterally saying to everybody, hey, you shouldn't do this past a certain age?
Well, I think, that's a great question. I think the first flaw is the assumption that age is the only factor that influences what you should do for training.
Yeah.
That was my big criticism of the article we were just talking about. Age is a factor, and I'm speaking from the position, like, I'm an old guy now, so this is near and dear to me, but age is a factor, but I hate the old saying, like, age is just a number. No, it's not just a number. If it was just a number, you wouldn't say that. Like, it is important. It's an important factor. But there's a lot of other factors, including your orthopedic status and your stress levels and your level of knowledge and your motivational levels and just your nutrition, and there's just all sorts of things that feed into the end result. Age is one of those factors, but you just have to look at everything kind of conglomerated. So and the other issue, of course, is there's a dramatic difference between a well-trained person who might be 58 and somebody who's a beginner. Like, totally different scenario.
Actually makes a ton of sense too. Yeah, especially if someone is used to doing those movement patterns. You've been doing this stuff for a very, very long time. And I think if you maintain these abilities, then you don't really encounter a lot of problems. Like, I'm 40, so I'm a fairly advanced lifter. I've been doing this with great consistency for about 16 years, and I squat 1 to 2 times a week, and I'll usually put 400 pounds on my back, and I've got a very deep squat. I have great hip mobility, despite being a tall lifter at about 6'2".
You got weird hips.
It's strange, but and I'll also
no, like, it's actually weird. Like, have you seen him? Like, he can squat like his ass to the grass, and it like not be like a challenge. Like, and it's not a depth thing like you're trying to. He just goes there. It's fucking. It's stupid.
It's the way I feel most comfortable moving naturally. And I'll also do pull-ups. Every once in a while, my shoulder will give me some grief on, well, unrelated almost. But twice a week, I'll do pull-ups for sets. And I'm also not light. But I've maintained these two abilities, and I'm very, very strict with my form, and I've never encountered any issues directly by doing either. And I think maintaining
those are two skills that you'd want as you're older. Like, basically get up off the ground and be able to stand up. Like, if you fall, that's I think, isn't that like the biggest cause of injury past like 7 is like falling down. Seriously.
Funny enough, like, I was a couple of weeks ago, I was going into a Safeway, and it was raining outside, and I had a pair of like slides on, like flip-flops.
Yeah.
And I knew I even told myself, okay, I've got to watch the floor here. It's like a slip linoleum floor. And sure enough, I go down. And no, I was fine. I was up in a heartbeat, and just looked around to make sure nobody saw. But that was not as minor an event as it was when I was 18.
Yeah.
It was not a big deal, but it kind of made me think for the rest of the day a little bit. I'm wow, that kind of shocked me a little bit. And I was fine. I worked out a couple hours later. But, it was more of an event than the last time I had fallen, which was probably 20 years ago. So, yeah, it makes you think a little bit. And you're kind of skirting on an issue that's kind of interesting, that as you get older, your ability to navigate the floor becomes more difficult. And that's one of the things I work with my older clients.
Absolutely, though. That's pretty much that could be a very big cause for concern as you're older. And it's not just it's just a fact. If you can't get up, you're fucked.
Something else that goes back to my original question about the benefits of lifting weight and staying strong as we get older is the maintenance of bone mineral density, which is
Absolutely.
a big thing for resisting injuries, especially things like falls. This matters even more to women than it does to men, because we know that women tend to be a little more prone to osteoporosis, osteoarthritis. But maintaining lean muscle mass, strength training, resistance training is going to have a very powerful effect on maintaining bone mineral density. So that alone, and that's one of the reasons why such unilateral articles just say, oh, this is all bad for people. They're actually quite irresponsible. And hopefully, for the most part, people just realize the type of listeners who listen to this know this is bullshit. But the people around you, your family, and your life might start to buy into this stuff. So it's good to have those conversations.
I would say it's more common than not, with more people that aren't in the fitness industry like that. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's go on here to so we're talking about being in shape after 50. So you actually got in the best shape of your life at 50 plus. So I mean, that's when it all started. So why was it a challenge before that point? And what would you say about the challenge for fitness professionals to get into and maintain elite shape?
Well, for me, the challenge was not so much that I was so busy training clients, because although I do train clients, I also do a lot of writing. I make my income through a variety of venues. So I am appreciative of the typical thing where you're training clients 35 hours a week, and the last place you want to be is the gym if you don't want to be. But for me, I had kind of a, I guess when I was 50, I had kind of a paradigm shift, and it kind of really woke me up a little bit. And it was just, I made the shift from, prior to age 50, the concept I carried around kind of subconsciously, and I think most people do this, is the idea that if I can, the answer from the way for me to get from A to Z is to find the optimal training program, to find the optimal exercises, to find the optimal diet. Because if I can just find the optimal methods, I'm golden. And my current paradigm is what needs to be optimal is my work ethic and my discipline. And you can make a very, very I can make a bulletproof argument to you that you're better off working really hard and consistently on a bad method than working half-ass on a perfect method. So, I mean, if you think about training, if you have the best coach on the planet, let's say you have the best program imaginable, the frequency and volume is ideal, the progression strategy is ideal. If you don't put in the effort, it's going to do nothing for you.
Well, but
if you had a sketchy program, I'm just going to use this as an example. Not that this is sketchy, but remember the old the Bill Phillips Body for Life program?
It sounds familiar. I'm not directly familiar.
It's just like a basic pyramid, just as vanilla, as you can just imagine, just super basic, nothing imaginative, But if you worked your ass off on that, you're going to make progress. So, and the same kind of goes for nutrition, in terms of fat loss. I mean, if you apply yourself with discipline to almost any diet, I mean, assuming that your calories are where they should be, you'll be fine. So the paradigm shift I made at age 50 was all right, I already know enough. The problem is not that I don't know enough. The problem is I'm not working hard enough. And when that happened, things started when that kind of took place, things started happening for me. And unfortunately, it took me many years to kind of get to that place, but at least I got there. So if you're 20 years old listening to this right now, there's your secret.
Well, I like that you mentioned pyramids, because pyramids show up in a number of different resources that we have in our industry. It'd be great if we had these things 20, 30 years ago. But the Renaissance periodization pyramids always do this muscle and strength pyramids, 3D MJ, Eric Helms' work. They always put the big rocks at the bottom, the really big stuff. And that's what you're saying, is you prioritize the big things. You get training consistency in there. You get the right amount of calories. You get your protein. You get enough sleep. There's a few other things that are obviously really critical. And then, things like supplements, especially, shit that largely has been more refuted, like BCAAs.
Sure.
Like, don't even worry about that kind of shit. You get these kids going in and spending their paychecks in supplement stores. And protein powder and creatine monohydrate are legitimate things. But there's a ton of stuff in there that does literally nothing. Or they were going to have
and it's
such
not
a
likely to
benefit.
be your weakest link. So
No.
One of the things that I like to do is I like to sort of inventory all the factors that go into the result I'm looking for, training-wise. And then I will kind of prioritize them.
Yeah.
So going back to the factors I just mentioned, consistency, work ethic, program design, whatever, environment, nutrition, orthopedic status. And then I try to rank those items from strongest to weakest. And then when I do that for myself personally, it tends to be consistency and work ethic is where I can make the most improvement.
Well, and that goes, yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say that goes back to like hard work. Like some people have, and I think I've wrote about this before, but the hard work for some people is like the consistency and just doing it. Some people can go smash the weights, but then they don't do it consistently enough. So I guess ranking it just puts together, I guess, your list of what you need to work harder at.
Yeah, and there are people who have almost the opposite problem. They smash it hard, like too much, too often, too hard. Mm-hmm. Too reckless, and you need to be slowed down. You need to be protected from yourself. So I think that's kind of admirable on a certain level. And I wish it was me, but it's not me. And funny enough, like that mistake I made over the years, which was just not focusing hard enough on work ethic, is probably has a lot to do with why I'm healthy orthopedically. Yeah. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. It's not entirely negative.
That makes a ton of sense. We talk about this sort of stuff. And
I'm an orthopedic mess.
Yeah, you are. We get images of. I actually said this to someone recently. I don't think I said it on the air. But you see images of Dwayne Johnson. Actually, I think I did. And what a maniac he is for training. He's short on sleep, and he's just one of these like relentless, crazy workers. But then recently he put up a post talking about all the injuries he's had over the years. And I think a lot of that stuff comes out of wrestling for sure and football.
Probably.
But I'm glad at least there's a full picture, because you get these kids emulating the sheer lunacy of what he's doing. And if you're not careful, especially if you're a beginner, you're going to get hurt doing that kind of shit.
Powerlifting's a perfect example. It's just like most people go to that limit and like, there's just a row of dead bodies and broken bones and hurt ligaments, and like I'm a perfect example after football and powerlifting. It's just like you can go too hard, and I'm almost doing the opposite. The hard thing for me to do isn't to work hard. It's to calm down and not do as much.
Yeah, I think that kind of self-awareness is really, really important. And, and like, it's not the most comforting thing to make the realization that, shit, I've been training like a pussy, it's not been, it's just a hard thing to own up to. But I think once you get past that, then things start to happen. And again, like it's a double-edged sword. I mean, I can deadlift 405 pounds for 10 reps at a body weight of 190 at age 58. Yeah. And that sounds impressive. But had I worked harder, maybe I would have reached significantly bigger numbers, but then I'd be busted up as well. So
you have the ability to hurt. You could be strong enough to hurt yourself.
Exactly. That's exactly. And I use that reference all the time.
Like, I use it too. It's just like there's a certain point where like, yeah, you can get strong and you can be stupid, but you can be stupid and weak and not have the ability to really fuck yourself up. It's the ones who like do it consistently enough.
No, I think you're totally right about that.
You're pushing it though. You're close. 455, and I bet like that you could do some damage.
I wanted to get Charles going on this one because you write a lot of posts about gym etiquette, so I can tell this is sort of shit sets you on fire. I've worked in commercial gyms. I still like working out in a commercial gym, even though I work at a place that's more of an athletic facility. More, I don't want to call it a hardcore gym. It's definitely not the typical commercial gym. We know that those kind of environments are rampant with etiquette fails. What would you say to people about gym etiquette? What's the stuff that matters? Maybe what some of the stuff has changed over time, and why is this shit still a problem?
Yeah, I don't know. I think people have this attitude that like, okay, I'm paying my dues, so this place is at my beck and call, and I can just leave my shit all over the place.
Huh?
But and you can, I guess. But it's just, I think it's almost working too hard to call it gym etiquette. It's just etiquette. It's just basic manners. And, funny enough, like here's another double-edged sword kind of thing. Like there's a personality trait. Do you guys follow Jordan Peterson, or do you know who he is?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So
he's definitely a contentious figure in some corners of our industry.
I like Jordan.
It's funny because certain people post about him, and he actually became very popular in our fitness industry. And there's a handful of people, and they're very, very ideologically left-leaning, who just start freaking the fuck
Fucking
out.
hate him.
And they get really, really angry and irate about it. But the problem is they've actually never paused to see what he's saying. And he's pretty much a classic liberal. He also happens to hit a few points that the alt-right love, and then so they characterize this guy as the fucking devil, but no, he's actually says a lot of generally good things.
Yeah, it amazes me that people are so polarized by him. Like, I don't even understand. But anyway, he talks a lot about a personality trait called agreeableness.
Yeah.
And so agreeableness is when you really care about people's feelings and you don't like conflict with people. And so you tend to excessively put other people's needs in front of your own. You'll actually take a hit just to avoid a conflict with somebody. So if you've ever found yourself doing that, you're probably high in agreeableness. Funny enough, the people who are the most aggressive in the gym and in terms of training tend to be low on agreeableness. Mm-hmm. And so that tends to lead to like not picking up after yourself. I'm not saying one causes the other, but they're kind of correlated together a little bit.
I'd say so.
So I care about like personally, I'm high in agreeableness, which one of the pros.
Hang on a second there, Charles. You're coming in a little spotty.
If I'm in the gym doing something,
now we got you.
I'm actually looking around just to make sure I'm not in somebody's way, because I don't want to irritate anybody, because I like people to like me. Yeah. However, maybe I should just be focusing on getting a good hard set in and not giving a fuck about what other people think. So, so I'm just saying, like, if you recognize that in yourself and you think you might be low in agreeableness, I mean, you're probably somebody who needs to kind of think about gym etiquette a little bit more, maybe.
Yeah, they should have a scale on that. Like, I'm probably in the middle. I'm good. I'm like really agreeable till I'm like on my equipment, and then I'm good. Like, don't bother me when I'm in my set.
Despite being kind of, kind-hearted and empathetic to people and training, especially, whatever, I actually would be quite low on agreeableness, but it doesn't manifest in... anyone who knows me quite well will be like, oh, yeah, he's really not agreeable.
Andrew could write a bunch of articles on this alone. Like, if you go scroll through his Facebook feed, maybe, like, just every periodically you have... What did you used to do? He used to go to, like, public gyms at, like, 10... and then write a post about the shit you see in it.
Commercial gym, commercial gym adventures.
But it's hilarious. Like it's all the stuff that we know to be true, and when you say, like, I remember that just because I'm not in there anymore.
Yeah, no, I actually get a great kick out of being in gyms. There's some stuff that's actually quite funny to watch. You get somebody who like really. Maybe they don't know any. Actually, the people who should know better are the ones that I'll have a little bit of fun with. I'll never pick on someone new. Like, that's evil. Fuck off and never bother someone who's trying.
There's like things that are funny though.
Yeah, you get some jackass who's like half repping like dumbbells that are 40 pounds too heavy for him. He's got no legs. And then at the top of a rep, he just launches them sideways after grunting, and they crash and roll on the ground, right? And you look down, and the gym, like the two gyms that I've spent the most time, commercial gyms, there's this area in the heavy dumbbells where the floor is all fucked up because these idiots keep dropping dumbbells.
Yeah.
Right? So these people, and they exist, and this shit drives me nuts.
You should know better. Like, here's a great example. And this is, I wonder if I should use this guy's name. I guess I will. So you guys follow UFC?
Yep.
So then you know who John Jones is.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
So last year or a year ago or whatever, he was working with like some powerlifting coach or like a strength coach who was influenced by powerlifting in any event. So he posted a video on his Instagram page where he's doing not block pulls, but like rack pulls, right?
Yeah.
So the bar is elevated like 6 inches. But then he's standing on a 6-inch block. So it just totally negates, like, it's just like what? It's just exactly the same as doing it from the floor. Like, so those are the things that just kind of mystify me. To me, you don't have to know anything about training to see how ridiculous that is. I mean, it's just plain observation. So.
You made me think of one of my biggest pet peeves. This one drives me fucking nuts. You get bikini girls, because they're the only ones who do this shit. And they'll grab 2 benches, and they'll grab a dumbbell, and they're doing that dumbbell sumo squat. Now, sometimes they're actually squatting low enough that they need the clearance, but most of the time they don't need the clearance, but they got to prop themselves up on 2 benches. They're hogging 2 benches.
Just tell me why you're doing it. That's all I want to know. Like, give me a good reason why.
So when I see that, I think about my 55-year-old female clients who are doing deep back squats with 135 pounds. So why would you use a 40-pound dumbbell if you're a young woman and theoretically you're in shape? There's just better. Our resources are not unlimited. This is like something I think about a lot. Like, you always have to make choices. You can't do everything. It would be nice if you could just train every single muscle to optimal levels and do it. Fred Hatfield used to always have this schema where, like, he recognized the different recovery curves with different exercises. So he had this like ABC training system where you would just train every exercise or every muscle based on its recovery level. So every workout of the week would be totally different. It'd be nice if you could do that, but you can't do everything. You've got to make choices. So faced between when I see somebody doing a sumo dumbbell, whatever that is, squat thing between 2 benches, why wouldn't you just squat with weight?
Just the time.
Just don't understand.
Just the time and having to get the benches, and then you have to like put them in the right spot, and then like knowing them, they've already got to set their fucking camera angle perfectly. But then like it's just like too much going on.
It's not a totally useless exercise, but
no.
Again, I tend to. I've used it, and I see that there's some value to it. But Charles, you're 100% right. For the most part, it's barbell on back, and there are people in our industry who are like, oh, nobody should back squat. It's bad. Like, guys, no. I mean, I understand like Cressy Sports Performance don't use back squatting,
but they're training baseball players.
They're training baseball players. Like the position of their humerus, they probably don't want to be there anyway.
They just need to stay healthy.
That one makes sense. The front squat, that's fine. But you see so many people doing so much shit. Like, fuck, one of the ones that drives me nuts, it's not a gym etiquette thing. It's just like, why the fuck are you wasting your time on this thing? Is seated calf raises. You'll get some dude who'll go in there, plunk the gym bag down, they'll sit down there, and then they're sitting down for 15 minutes doing calf. And that is one of the most useless exercises in the gym.
Because it doesn't pull at the pelvis, right? Like, it's just...
Yeah, you're in a bent knee position, right? So you're not getting your gastroc involved in that one. That is a truly useless exercise.
I told you. This question was for Andrew. It wasn't even for you.
So, Charles, what are your biggest pet peeves? The shit that you see?
Top 3.
Well, I just think one of my top 3. Sometimes I'm not as fast as I wish I was, and I can't come up with these things on command. But one thing that comes to mind is just for some reason there's this weird trend for women where you're doing these like quasi plyometric kind of jumping around kind of like just to give you a visual, like where you stand on one side of a bench, you put your hands on the bench, and you hop back and forth over the bench, that kind of thing. Or these mini like kind of squat jump things.
Yeah, with the leg kicks.
Or leg kicks.
The bands around their knees.
So I train a lot of women, and I think I do a good job with them. And so the whole women thing gets me kind of lit up sometimes. So the whole jumping around thing freaks me out. And then there's another thing that I see a lot of women doing. I don't know if this comes from women or if it comes from guys, but where you kind of multitask. Like instead of doing one exercise, you're actually doing kind of like 4 exercises at once. So it's like kind of like a twisting lunge, overhead press, kind of,
I saw leg press, bench press.
One component of the exercise is dramatically overloaded and the other is dramatically underloaded.
Yes.
And like just too much complexity.
Like where
so like I
that?
never understood why, like, I don't know if I can articulate this, but you do like a step up, and then at the top of the step up, you kind of flex your back knee like against no resistance. You kind of like kick up. You follow what I mean?
Yep, absolutely.
Why would you do that? Like, there's no resistance. Like, it's just not that it hurts anything tremendously, but why? I mean, I just don't understand why people do that. Like,
well, the one that drives me bonkers, and you basically just sort of said it, was you get someone who does lunges and then curls. Like you lunge, you do a curl. It's like, okay, you know what? If you really want to make that effective, make the lunges challenging because they're not going to be this way. Because you have to keep the weight light enough to be relevant for the curls. And I don't even think the curls are that fucking good. Then, okay, do the lunge, stand up, superset curls. You'll hammer both more effectively. But this lunge curl bullshit, I see it.
But where did you find that? Like,
but it's just
where do you read
or
about that?
like twisting lunge curl overhead press.
Yeah, like Jesus.
Standing on a BOSU with elastic tubing. It's just, sometimes I feel like a curmudgeon when it comes to this stuff. I just do not understand what the perceived benefit is.
Well,
I think the jumping around stuff can be explained because I think it's just difficult and it sucks, and so you just figure, okay, there must be benefit. But the muscle building potential of drills like that is almost nothing. You're not burning much in the way of calories. You're not working mobility. So I don't even know what you're doing.
Well, a quote that I can't remember where the hell I saw this, but you see this sort of crap on Instagram all the time. You get bodyweight lunges, bodyweight squats. These girls demonstrate this. Sometimes they're on BOSUs with legs and butts clearly heavy squat, heavy deadlift built legs, telling you that you can build this sort of physique with bodyweight shit. And it's complete horseshit.
Well, and it's not solely women, but like that's pretty much where you get like the Instagram model stuff. And like, their legs are huge. Like there's no way you built that.
No.
You either injected your mom.
No.
Which is like totally true.
I can deadlift 500 pounds and I have no glutes.
No.
So women have to work even harder than men. Like that's something that's lost on a lot of people. Like, you don't have the testosterone, to support growth. So women have to actually be more hardcore than men. So they're the least, able to kind of make those mistakes. You've got to be super hardcore as a woman. You've got to do, proven fundamentals. You've got to load up heavy. And, I've got female clients in their 70s who can deadlift over 100 pounds.
Cool.
So what are you doing like with body weight? Like it just doesn't make any sense.
Well, I'm looking at pictures of you and you kind of look like me. We both deadlift heavy, but like we got no legs. So like you got to work. Like don't tell me it's those stupid jumps and the leg kicks with the bands. Like it's not doing that. Like I want to know the real answer.
No. So.
But maybe it's because we're not doing them. Maybe there is more. Maybe we got to try it out for a year and see.
Maybe maybe we're going too hard.
Maybe that might go back to that whole first conversation. Damn it.
We went all over the place with this one. This is fun. I guess to bring it back. I mean, anyone who's listening to this, I think, are probably fairly conscientious of gym etiquette. I think it's just something to keep in mind. There's a lot of stuff that we probably take for granted. One that I'm actually quite guilty of is I tend to take a lot of rest between sets. I move a little slower. I like lifting very, very heavy with good form. And I'll actually bring my iPad to the gym most of the time, and I'll actually be there. I'll be writing podcasts. I'll be writing various things or whatever. Maybe I'm messaging clients. And I know there's sort of an old school mentality that's really pissed off with the idea of like having phones on machines. And even I'll look at some...
So glad you're bringing this up.
Yeah, go. All right, then your thoughts.
Well, I mean, when you finish a set, you should disconnect.
Yeah.
You should leave the station and put your mind somewhere else for a couple of minutes. And what's better than like, having a political, argument with somebody on Facebook or, but like yeah, there's this thing like, okay, why are you texting your friends between sets? Well, that's exactly what you should do. You should disconnect and recover as fast as you can. And and then when it's time to go, you go. You switch that switch and off you go. So yeah, I'm exactly the same way.
Well, there was I don't know who the hell said it. I think it was one of my anyways, like you can go on your phone, just don't go on long enough to scroll through your whole feed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you can check a few things, just not your whole feed. And like everyone knows when you get caught in the loop of like you'll see something, you click on a link and you go through the web, like go to like 1 or 2 links and then like that's usually about a minute and a half. But when you get caught up in looking at everyone's stories and all this stuff, you know when you're in the hole.
The one thing...
Do you notice, not to cut you up, but do you notice like when you're training a beginner and you do a set of bench presses and then they'll just stay there on the bench. They'll stay lying down on the bench. I'm like, no, get up, get the fuck out of here for a minute. Come back to it. Like disconnect yourself from this.
They're probably anxious doing that, and they probably end up like, yeah.
They're feeling crushed. I was going to say, the one thing that drives me fucking bonkers, if you're in a gym and then some asshole gets on their phone talking loudly, and you can hear their conversation, like, the guy's...
You want to hear something funny? I used to train at this commercial gym here in Scottsdale. Doesn't matter which one. And there was this guy, I'll do a terrible job recreating this, but he's on the phone and he's like got wireless earbuds in, and it's like, no, I told you the margins are too high. We've got to cut back on production. And he's like having all this kind of discussion for like an hour, and then I happen to be walking by him. He goes, "Okay, Mom, I'll talk to you later. I'm doing a workout." He's talking to his mother. I thought he was like on a corporate conference call or something, and he was talking to his mother. It's hilarious.
Just to tie this all together, because I know like gym etiquette, and we're talking about how etiquette's etiquette no matter what. I was at the movies once, and this will tie it all together. A guy walks in late. So he walks in 10 minutes late, slams himself beside me, and he's like, "Oh, do you know what movie this is? I just picked one and randomly showed up." Pulls out his vape.
Oh no.
Takes it, blows a big smoke bubble into the air. Okay. 5 minutes later, falls asleep. Wakes up because his cell phone turns on. Picks up his cell phone, has a conversation. Takes a poot out of his vape, spills it. Drops his vape to the row below him. Puts his phone down. His other phone rings.
Oh,
He talking to that phone, taps on the people in front of him to get his vape, and then smokes again. Then he falls asleep after and starts snoring.
You know what? As agreeable as I am, I would have roid rage big time on that. Like that would just kill me.
It did kill me, but it was so funny that it was happening. I'm like, I just have to take it. I'm like, there's people like this in the world. And like, there's people like that in the gym. It's the same thing. They just don't even know.
I have no agreeableness with that shit.
But I don't think he even had a clue. Like, and that's where like
clearly not.
No.
Anyways, I don't know if that happened in Scottsdale. It happened in Edmonton.
Well, I think part of the etiquette issue is that when you're outside the gym, the population density is not quite as tight.
Yeah.
So you're spared from people's breaches of etiquette a little bit. But when you're in a gym or a movie theater, and your example, the movie theater made me think of this, you're just kind of compressed in with people. And so people's indiscretions have more of an impact on you. And I think that has a lot to do with it.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this, just don't be that person.
Don't be a dick.
Yeah. Like it's a pretty simple rule. It's like idiots will be idiots. It's like, I don't discriminate against anyone, but like if you're being stupid or like you're doing shit like that, like you're just that person. Nothing. You're just dumb. And a dick.
Okay, I'm glad we solved that.
It's like we just solved the problem. It made us all feel good. We were like, we got our energy levels up a little bit. We're kind of all clenched fists. And then now we can just relax. It's off our chest. It's in the world.
I'm going to move on to the next question.
Because we could go on to this for an hour. I know that.
This one I love, and it popped up. Like I go through, anytime I bring a guest on, I generally go through their social media feed and I look for some current things, stuff they've written. So I really love this. So if anyone has really gotten into research, it's very, very clear at this point that nearly any weight and rep range works for muscle growth.
Yep.
If it's done right. If it's lightweight, you got to take the reps really, really high. They got to feel terrible, crazy pumps on it. If you go very, very heavy and low repetition, that stuff can work. It can be very fatiguing. You have to take more rest breaks. But we always had a traditional belief that 8 to 12 reps was the best for muscle growth. And yet that range is still the sweet spot for muscle. Would you explain why?
Yeah, I agree. I think it totally is. And if you like 10 to 15 or whatever, I'm fine with that too, or whatever. But it's somewhere in that neighborhood. And the easy way to determine the optimal rep, category for you would be if I told you you've got to do 10 really heavy sets, like all within 1 rep to failure. How many reps do you want to do in those 10 sets? And I don't think it's going to be 2. And I don't think it's going to be 20. Maybe it is. I mean, I'm sure there are outliers, but for me, it's going to be 8 to 10, 8 to 12, possibly. But the issue here's the issue on both ends of the extremes with this. If the weight is extremely heavy, like let's say you're doing 10 sets of 1, because the weight is so heavy, you need to do many more warm-up sets, which takes time. And then you need to rest longer between warm-up and work sets, which takes more time. And you've got a lot of orthopedic stress, and yep. Not only orthopedic stress, but just psychic stress. Anybody who's squatted heavy can relate to the idea that even if I'm in a rack with the safeties in, you just have an acute awareness that bad things could happen.
Yeah, it's threatening.
When you're squatting really heavy. Like bad things can happen. So there's a psychic stress that kind of, I think, takes a toll on long-term recovery. So those are the issues with going really heavy. And then the issues with going really light are that on the plus side, you don't need much in the way of warm-ups. So that saves you some time. But the problem is that only the last...
1 second. Charles, can you hear me? We've had you cut out a little bit there.
You're doing, let's say you're going to say the last 5 are the result producing reps.
Yeah.
I think, who did a little infographic on this recently? James Krieger, maybe?
James.
I think it was James.
I think he has great infographics on his Instagram if you haven't seen those. But so the problem is if you do a set of 20 and only the last 5 are result producing, you have to do 15 junk reps just to get to the point where you're getting somewhere. So it's just kind of a waste of time and it's uncomfortable. So in between those two extremes, like I think you have 8 to 12. And I think it's fun to go heavy personally, but just not all the time. And I don't think it's fun ever to go high reps. My friend John Russin has this, it's like goblet squat challenge.
Yeah. 25.
That's the worst, most nasty fucking thing. I don't know. I've come close. I've gotten 21 reps.
This is body weight, right? Body weight in dumbbell or half?
It's half body weight. It's horrible.
Yeah.
So
just a lot of time too. Like that's like we're talking like a minute probably.
Yeah, I mean 20 reps, 3 seconds per rep. That's pretty horrible. On the other hand, if you don't think it's horrible and you think it's fun, then it might be more relevant for you. But so that's where that 8 to 12 thing comes from.
What I think he talked about in their podcast was just like you got to get to that point and then you have like 3 or 4 good reps. Because I think it was him and Brad or kind of went on a rant about it. And it's at this point, like that was what that whole study was about. Essentially, his whole like research lately was kind of that's what's coming out.
My approach to this when I'm working with anyone, especially and when I'm training myself and I'm looking for muscle growth, because that's my primary goal, and a lot of clients like that too, is I tend to keep most of the work in that 8 to 12 rep range. Yeah. I will occasionally do some higher rep stuff, gets into 50 and 20. For maybe lighter, more isolated movements, and that can actually be really, really good. And then you do some intense strength work, maybe in a 3 to 5 rep range on the low end for some of your big lifts, maybe for a set or 2 at the end sometimes. So I like moving around between the rep ranges, but for the most part, I do the bulk of the work in that 8 to 12.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just comes down to not majoring in minors. So in all of these discussions, this is not this is not super concrete. Like it's just a matter of doing the most effective stuff most of the time. And I saw an interview recently with Dr. Mike Israetel. Yeah. He made a great point about like, don't let the search for optimization like kill off all your fun. So in other words, if something makes your training 1% more effective, but it makes you hate your training, it's just not worth the trade-off, probably. So,
and I was actually just talking about pretty much the same subject with Pat Davidson this morning. Was about like the more and more I learn, the more and more I circle back to the basics. But it's that different understanding of why the basics are good that I tend to go to them. And I think that gets lost because everyone tries to find complex when really simple is theoretically complex, but it's the stuff you need to be doing. And like no one kind of gives the respect to the basics, which actually goes to our next question was essentially like, we talked about deadlifts and chin-ups, and you kind of always circle back around to consistency and success, but the value of tried and true basics. So like, can you kind of talk on that even, like just that basic understanding of what people and trainers should be doing?
There's such a hard concept to sell because just sexy. By definition, it's like basic is the antithesis of sexy. You know, it's just the hardest thing to sell. One way I try to sell it is that if you think about training and you think about how the strength and physique athletes of even the 60s and how well they did despite limited knowledge of recovery, nutrition, and drugs and everything. Honestly, you can make a pretty bulletproof case for the idea that we've already learned most of what there is to learn. Yeah. So most of the discoveries and advancements, the significant ones anyway, have already been discovered. And there will be more, but they are of less and less magnitude year by year by year. So we already know most of what there is to know. And so I try not to use the word basics. I try to use the word fundamentals, which I think is a little bit more palatable. I think it still leaves me lacking a little bit, but yeah, I mean, we already know how to do this stuff. Like when I was in Santa Barbara working for the ISSA, I used to know Tom Platz, and I watched Tom Platz train, and he was well into retirement, and he was a freak. Like I still have not seen anybody like Tom since then. I mean, there are guys out there. There are guys like Larry Wheels, and there's crazy people out there. It's pretty fun, but
it's a great way.
The top guys of the 60s and 70s and 80s really could hold their own with most of the guys today, for sure. So it's just this stuff has already been figured out. So the question is, do you just want to do what works, or do you just want to find ways to entertain yourself?
Well, I think that actually is a question most people don't answer. And I think that, honestly, outside of not understanding what works, they do want to be entertained. People get bored a lot of the times.
With basics, because they're not sexy. I think, you know what? That's a real thing. So if you, we all like to think that we're rational, but it's a good thing to admit to yourself that we're not rational. And sometimes we do things that are not rational just because we're bored or we think it's fun. And I mean, I don't know how rational is it for me to deadlift 405 for 10 at age 59? It's probably, if I want to feel as good as possible when I'm 80, there might be more direct routes toward that. But I just think it's fun.
I'm also of the attitude that I don't want to go into the ground as a well-preserved corpse. I'm okay with some scars and some wear and tear on my system as I get older as well, doing fun things.
When I in my former life, I was a martial arts instructor and competitor. And we took a seminar one time. This guy's name is Bill Superfoot Wallace. Do you happen to know who that is?
Nope, that doesn't ring a bell. Sorry.
He's a PKA world full contact karate champion. And he had just unbelievable kicking ability on his left leg. I mean, he could just kick vertically into the air, even when he was 40 years old, and just do slow motion kicks. And actually he had a bad right knee, and he wasn't very good with his hands. So kind of all he had was a left leg and 3 kicks, and nobody could get past it. It was amazing. But anyway, when I took this seminar with him, he was about 45 years old. And it was still pretty amazing, but somebody had the nerve to ask him a question along the lines of, he didn't say it this way, but he just said, he was alluding to the fact that how can I phrase this? They were just making reference to the fact that he's older now and he can't do the stuff he used to be able to do. And what's that feel like? He said, well, better to be a has-been than a never was.
He's take that.
Let's, one thing you mentioned when we talked before this too is you mentioned having a quick chat about exercise selection and training for muscle building, and that sort of ties in with a lot of stuff there. So did you want to elaborate some thoughts on some of that?
Too. And this goes back to the stuff we were talking about with how women train.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, if you think about it, being muscular and lean is 180 degrees counter to what evolution really wants for you. So, in other words, the evolutionary forces that created the body you live in right now, like, basically want you to be skinny fat.
Yeah.
And
So
the
you can
reason is
survive.
because Mother Nature's goal for you is to survive a famine. That's
Yep.
one of the biggest kind of
Well, that's what the thing is.
environmental threats that we are well, prepared for.
Yep.
Because back in the day, whatever it was, 10,000 years ago, that was like one of the most significant threats to reproducing your genes into the next generation. So
Absolutely.
now surviving a famine is no longer a threat. It's quite the opposite, in fact, but you are still wired that way.
Yeah.
So in terms of muscle, I mean, muscle costs a lot of energy to build, and then once it's built, to maintain. So the more muscle you have, the more expensive it is in terms of calories just to exist.
Yeah.
And so if you're an organism that needs a lot of calories, you're not as well equipped to survive a famine. So that's why it's unusual to have a lot of muscle. And so what that says to me in terms of training is that you need to train in a way that overrules those impulses and basically is telling your homeostatic mechanisms that, we need this muscle to survive. So when you think about it that way, and you need to train in a manner that tells your body that you need more muscle to survive. So that means two things. It means you need to work hard, which we've already talked about.
Yeah.
And then it means you need to do exercises that are hard and sometimes scary. And I've mentioned the 4 or 5 times 10, a couple of times too many already. But when you do something like that, that's like a fight or flight experience.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, if you've ever almost gotten into a bad car accident and you thought you were going to die, and then suddenly you're like, okay, fuck, I'm okay. That's kind of what it feels like to deadlift 4 or 5 for 10 for me. So you can't find those experiences doing tricep kickbacks and hopping back and forth over a bench and doing planks and doing walking lunges and, all the other exercises that I think are stupid. So you need to do exercises that trigger homeostatic alarm. So what does that mean? It means all the stuff that's hardest to do. Bench presses, deadlifts, squats, dips, pull-ups, heavy rows, bent over rows, T-bar rows, maybe lunges if you do them heavy enough. But not walking lunges where you're doing these little itty-bitty range of motion lunges just because you're mostly focused about getting across the floor, And it doesn't mean doing the little sumo squat thing on 2 benches and, whatever. So when we talk about exercises that stimulate homeostatic alarm, you're talking about exercises that are stable, first of all, because stable exercises allow relatively heavy loading and heavy loading over a relatively large range of motion. And those are the kind of characteristics that make exercises effective. So can you relatively safely move a large load over a large range of motion in a way that does not hurt you? In other words, like if you have pain doing it, that's not a good exercise for you.
That's a bad alarm.
But, yeah, so I mean, you can take this stuff too far, but you've got to find movements that are safe for you, and then also are just extremely rigorous in terms of the factors that I just brought up. So that's it. So that's why, like, for example, I never do direct arm training with local clients. Not that I don't think you shouldn't do arm training, but they don't need me for that.
No.
You can do it on your own. And if we have limited resources and these people have an hour with me and it's like, we're going to do pull-ups or curls, we're going to do pull-ups.
And the one thing I always allude to is like, you need to go back a step in evolution in terms of how your brain is operating. Like you need to go like full hindbrain to get there. And like most people don't know what that feels like. Because when you can think through something, you're generally not working hard enough to get that adaptation. Saying that the adaptation is the game muscle, because like you need to be in a fight or flight mode, and most people don't know how to get there. Like they literally don't. Like they're just not working hard enough. And I know it's horrible to say, but like you fucking know.
I had a woman last week squatting, and as she's squatting, she's talking to me the whole time.
Yeah.
And she's a hard worker. I'm not putting her down at all. But as soon as she racked the bar, I put 20 more pounds on the bar. And I just told her, like, anytime you talk to me while you're squatting, you're going to get a weight increase. Because I just know that there's more in you. So she kind of laughed.
We've kept you for a little over an hour now, Charles. So we had a couple more questions for you. This has actually been one of my true favorite podcasts ever. This is good. I'm glad that we were able to get you out here. The thing we ask everyone is, I'm going to assume that you didn't get to where you are by avoiding reading books at all. So do you have a book that you love that you'd share with us?
That's true. Oh, did I lose you?
Oh.
I think I lost somebody there.
Oh, you're good.
We've got you. You're back.
Okay, there you go. I got
Perfect.
you now. Oh, I think I lost you again.
Oh, you're there.
We're just a little choppy for a moment. We'll get it.
Okay, so you're saying I didn't get to where I got from by avoiding reading books. That's very true.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, when I was a karate student back in the 70s, and I'm not a natural athlete, and I struggled, and I wasn't making the kind of progress that a lot of my classmates were making, but I was nonetheless just obsessed with the activity. I used to actually skip class in school and go to the local college bookstore and read college level kinesiology textbooks, thinking that if I could just understand anatomy maybe a little better, that somehow that would help me, because I just couldn't think of anything else. So I'm kind of geeky that way, but man, where do you start with books? I mean, there's just so many subjects, but
what's your favorite? Like what's the one book?
Well, we mentioned Dr. Mike Israetel, and he has scientific principles of strength training.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is just absolutely, if you're a trainer or a coach or a strength athlete, it's just a must-have. And it is a little bit sciencey, but I think it's digestible.
Yeah, it is.
Now, there's something along very much the same lines that is a little bit more digestible, maybe, and that is there are a couple of really nice books by Greg Nuckols. Mm-hmm. And it's like a 2-book compendium. It's the art and science of strength training, and the science, as you might guess, is more sciencey, and the art is a little bit more kind of practical. But that's just so good. And those are both of those books are within the last couple of years, so those are really, really good. Going back a few years, the Vladimir Zatsiorsky textbook, Science and Practice of Strength Training, it's a little bit more academic, a little bit more kind of textbookish, but very, very, very good stuff. Along the philosophy and kind of ethos of lifting, if you know who Marty Gallagher is.
I've heard the name.
So he's got a book called The Purposeful Primitive, and boy, that's just good stuff.
Just like evolutionary stuff?
Yeah, it's just a primer on work ethic,
Nice.
And boy, it's just so good. And there's so much good stuff out there. I mean, I like a lot of Mark Ripeto's stuff. I disagree with him on a lot of things also, but there's a lot to be gleaned from his work. I love the work of Dan John. I love the work of Pavel Tsatsouline, just to name a few that are coming top of mind right at the moment. But there's so many people, and it's fun to be in this field right now because there's just so many smart people out there, and it's really a lot of fun. I love all the work from Chad Wesley Smith also. Really, really good stuff.
Okay, with our closing, I guess, usually we always ask, where's the best place to find you? Social media, website, like how do they get a hold of what you have to give to this world?
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm pretty active on Facebook, so I've got a personal Facebook page under my name, just Charles Staley, and then I've got something called the Staley Strategies Online Coaching, so that's kind of where I've got more of the professional stuff up there. I'm also on Instagram. I'm on Twitter, but don't really use it much, but you can find me on Instagram under Staley Strategies. And the website is staleystrategies.com. So between those, I think you can find me.
Good. And then you also write for T Nation, and what other publications have you written for? I think bodybuilding.com, if I'm not mistaken, but maybe.
I do a lot of work for bodybuilding.com, T Nation. I just submitted a piece to On It Academy, so that'll be coming out at some point. So those are the primary ones.
Great. Charles, we really appreciate you coming on. This was wonderful. Like I said, if anyone is, a fan of yours and they're finding us for the first time, we mentioned a few names. You mentioned Greg Knuckles, James Krieger, and Mike Israetel. We've had all of them on. James has been on twice. Greg has been once. And Mike Israetel has actually appeared on 3 of our podcasts. So they're just a few of the people we've had on. And if you guys want to check out more of what we've done, just scroll through and look for some of these people, because there's some great episodes there. And for our core audience who are finding Charles for the first time, go check out his online work too. Go follow him on Facebook, because I've enjoyed his work for a really long time. And there's just some really cool and really inspirational stuff. Just to actually watch Charles work out is really epically badass. And it makes you go, fuck, I'm not doing enough. So thanks, Charles, for coming on. We really appreciate your time. And hopefully everybody enjoyed this one. Take care, guys.
Thanks so much. It was much fun. Thank you.
Great.
Shut up and sit down.